Hey guys, hope you are going well. Let's chat about episode 4 of Penny Dreadful, entitled Good and Evil Braided Bee. This week was a very Caliban the Creature heavy episode. After only seeing a glimpse of him on that stranded ship in the first episode as he is trying to get as far away from London as possible, and last week in episode 2 we didn't see him at all. Presumably he was still walking back from the ship, because when he was on the ship in the first episode he did have sort of like a broken, fragmented piece of memory from life before he was reborn as the creature back from when he was a human. So this week we got to see a lot of him and his return to London. He is the first of the characters who left London at the end of season 2 to return, and we really got to spend a lot of time with him and again just see this broken and wretched side as he is trying to seek out his family and especially his son. Over across the waters in the Wild West, Sir Malcolm and the Apache Kaitane are hot on Ethan and Hecate's trail. Kaitane, I'm sure I'm not saying his name correctly, but I'm really liking his spiritual or magical sort of premonition side, where he seems to have this connection and this really strong bond and link to Ethan in more ways than just being a father figure or being his Apache father. It's almost like he is bound to him to look after him or destroy him depending on what the situation calls for, whether Ethan is savable or redeemable or not. Finally, we see Sir Malcolm return to a bit more of his warrior former self. He was quite lost, especially at the end of last season and the beginning of this season. He didn't have a goal, didn't have sort of like something to really drive him and motivate him, and he was floundering a little bit around in Africa when Kaitane first found him. So here on the train carriage, finally we see him really step into his new sort of quest to find and save Ethan. When these two racist bully men come up and demand that Kaitane remove himself from a carriage which is designated only to white people, so Malcolm owns it. He stands up with so much menace behind a calm demeanor, and just these guys are immediately intimidated and they're just like, they hightail it out of there. As for Hecate and Ethan's little partnership, I understand that Ethan is putting up with her because at this point in time she is helping him or aiding him in a sense, and she is the one that got him out of that massacre situation that he got himself into last episode. So she is helping him, and he does say that he only hates her slightly less than he hates the desert, and he really hates the desert. Then when Rusk and the other inspectors came across them in the canyon and began shooting at them randomly, I didn't understand why he grabbed her hand and tried to like rush her off to the horses so they could escape. I was like, she can handle herself. You do not need to grab her hand and take her to the horses. It's like, no, Ethan, don't do that. Petty, I know, but grabbing her hand was like a really strong sign of care, and I did not feel that that scene warranted that. Now we all have to stand back and quietly applaud Penny Dreadful at throwing a joke in there. One of the few sort of subtle, deliberate jokes I think we've seen. It's when, after shooting at Ethan and Hecate in the canyon, that the American officer is talking to Rusk, and Rusk says that Scotland Yard inspectors don't carry firearms, and the American officer goes, well, you'll do great out here in the West. I was like, it took me a second, I was like, was that a joke? Again, I really like the writing. It's a subtle, really subtle wry bit of humor just kind of injected in there, and that's what makes this writing so good, that just when everything is really down and bleak and poetic, they just throw in a little bit of subtle humor in there, and it just kind of keeps everything nicely balanced. Not going to talk too much about Lily's plan for world domination over men with her new minion. I forget what her name is. She gave her a name. I forget what she called her. Nonetheless, Dorian and Lily are planning to build an army, and Dorian for the most part is just sitting back and letting Lily take the front seat on this plan. And still Dorian, I've mentioned this every season, but Dorian is just so weak for me. He doesn't even need to be there. I don't even know what his point is and how he is, apart from giving Lily money and the means and resources for her, evil scheme. I don't feel like he's contributing at all. Anyway, there is a full-on bloodbath threesome we see, which I must say was quite nasty. I don't even have a comment on that scene. I don't even really know what to say. Dr. Sweet, who I so passionately despise, I have done a complete flip since we first met him 2 episodes ago in the beginning of the season, and I was like, what a lovely, timid, friendly, soft-spoken man, and now I just so much hatred towards him. Like, how he's manipulating her is absolutely infuriating. As the two of them go on their date and she takes him by the arm and they go to the Hall of Mirrors, and she says something along the lines of, do you want to know the future? And he says, where's the fun in that? And that just makes my skin crawl, because we know what he has in store for her and how he is trying to manipulate her to have a genuine feelings towards him. So it seems like he doesn't want to just kill her, he wants her for his own. He wants to dominate her 100% and completely, and in that he needs her to maybe completely submit to his will and fall for him. So I suppose that is the pretense behind the entire ruse and disguise, and just gives me the mega creeps. The episode wraps up with Vanessa demanding Dr. Seward to put her under hypnosis after, in the Hall of Mirrors, she was confronted by one of Dracula's henchmen, and there's a memory that seems to be in the back of her mind that she's trying to access. So she goes under hypnosis back to the time that she was in the asylum, and here we see that Caliban was actually one of the orderlies, someone who brought her food, and he steps into her cell and calls her Miss Ives. So clearly he knew her when he was a human. On the whole, this week's episode was at a nice pace. There wasn't anything too intense going on. It was quite standard, just visiting all our key characters. I do personally wish that some of our key characters would reunite again in some sense. It's kind of feeling a little bit spread out. So I know we're not only in London, but we're in America, but in London, where everyone is also just divided up into these segments and these portions, and the episodes just seem to go around visiting, little person by person and see their particular unique individual storyline. And I am wanting to see a little bit more interaction and overlapping of these characters, like Caliban seeing Vanessa from across the street. That was such a great moment because we have a previous history with those characters, and it was just great to see an overlap of their storylines, and I would love to see a little bit more of that as we go on. They are my thoughts on this week's episode of Penny Dreadful. Make sure you leave me comments in the comment section down below. Let me know, you guys, what you thought of this week's episode, what you think we'll be seeing next week. Do you think Ethan is really going to, get together with Hecate and they're going to sort of go that route, or do you think he will, remain strong and not take on her very enticing offer of a partnership? Thank you so much for watching, guys. That is it from me, and I will see you next week. Bye.